as with any new technology, there can be good sides and bad sides of things, benefits and drawbacks, pros and cons. We're going to go through those during this screencast. A lot of the research that's done involving genetically modified plants and animals is done by private biotechnology and pharmaceutical companies. Their goal is profit because they're private companies and they're trying to develop new crops, drugs, tests, or other products. Like most inventors, they protect their discoveries with patents, a legal tool that gives whoever discovers something the exclusive right to profit from it for a number of years. Molecules and DNA sequences can be patented. About 20% of the known genes in the human genome are patented commercially. This shows the increase in nucleic acid patents, DNA and RNA patents, between 1985 and 2005. It's a huge jump. Lab techniques have also been patented, like PCR. When a scientist wants to run a PCR test, they have to pay a fee for the license to use this process. The ability to patent is meant to spur discovery and advancements in medicine and industry, but sometimes patent holders demand high fees in exchange for using a certain technology or exploring a certain gene, and that becomes cost prohibitive. Other scientists aren't able to afford that. The last screencast we talked about provitamin A enriched golden rice. Patent disputes kept the rice out of the hands of farmers for years. When it comes to your own DNA, how much privacy are you entitled to? Do you have exclusive rights? Should you be able to keep your genetic information confidential? The Tomb of the Unknown Soldiers in Arlington National Cemetery holds the remains of unknown American soldiers who fought in our nation's wars. In order to avoid more of these unknown soldiers, the military requires all personnel to give a DNA sample when they begin service. Those DNA samples are kept on file and used to identify remains. What if the government wants to use DNA sample for a criminal investigation or a paternity suit? What if health insurance providers manage their healthcare policies based on genetic predisposition to disease? What if someone's DNA prevents him or her from being employed or obtaining health insurance because of a genetic defect detected in the sample? Would that be fair? In 2008, the United States passed GINA, the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act, which protects Americans against discrimination based on their genetic information. Switching gears to genetically modified foods, farmers choose GM crops because they produce higher yields, which reduces the amount of land and energy that must be devoted to agriculture, and it lowers the cost of food for everybody. Insect-resistant genetically modified plants need little, if any, insecticide. So that reduces the chances that chemical residues will enter the food supply and lessens the damage to the environment. GM foods have been carefully studied, and they've provided no support for concerns about their safety. It does seem that foods made from GM plants are safe to eat. Critics point out that no long-term studies have been made of the hazards, just short-term studies. Some worry that insect resistance engineered into genetically modified plants may also threaten beneficial insects, killing them as well as crop pests. So it's threatening an entire ecosystem. Others express concerns that use of plants resistant to chemical herbicides may lead to overuse of these weed-killing compounds. Another concern is about the patents held on genetically modified seeds. That the cost is enough, it's too expensive for small farmers, especially in the developing world. Current federal regulations in the U.S. treat genetically modified foods and non-genetically modified foods equally. GM foods are not required to undergo special safety testing before entering the market. No additional labeling is required, unless its ingredients are significantly different from its regular counterpart. There's a possibility that meat from genetically modified animals may soon enter the food supply, and that's raised concerns about labeling. Some states have begun to consider legislation to require the labeling of GM foods so that consumers can choose. Biotechnology has given us the ability to know ourselves more and more. With that knowledge comes responsibility. The GFP gene we've been able to demonstrate can be extracted from a jellyfish, spliced onto genes coding for important cellular proteins. This has led to significant new discoveries about how cells function. The same technology was used to create fluorescent zebrafish. Fluorescent mice, tadpoles, rabbits, and cats have all been created and have helped us understand how cells and proteins work. Is this ethical, though? Alter life forms for any purpose, scientific or non? Are we justified in doing something like this? Modifying an organism's characteristics? Some people call it playing God, if you will. Here's some examples of questions that have to be answered. Ethics questions. If human cells can be manipulated to cure disease, should biologists try to engineer taller people or change their eye color, hair texture, sex, blood group, or appearance? What will happen to the human species when we gain the opportunity to design our bodies, or those of our children? What will be the consequences if biologists develop the ability to clone human beings by making identical copies of their cells? Interesting questions. Biology is meant to gain a better understanding of the nature of life. As our knowledge increases, our ability to mess with the genetics of living things increases as well, including ourselves. In a democracy like ours, all citizens are responsible for ensuring that the tools science given us are used wisely. Everybody, from all walks of life, should be prepared to help determine what should and should not be done with the human genome.